The first is our BEAD deployment technical update. So we are still in the data curing phase, working with NTIA. We have had to remove some of our locations due to data discrepancies. We've been working with the ISPs that are in those areas affected by those changes to ensure that the impacts to the project areas will be minimal. And NTI has mentioned a potential cleanup round. Nothing is set in place, but we were still planning to work as hard as we can to get as many locations served as possible. Our GIS team is working to update those maps online, our beat tracker, and we'll let you know when they are fully updated. But does anyone have any questions on that? Paul and Jacob, if you have anything to add on beat deployment, feel free to as well.
Hey, thanks, Elizabeth. I'll just jump in real quick and say, as far as the cleanup round goes, essentially what that would mean would be the locations that we had to remove, basically in order to clear up this data discrepancy with NTIA. They have expressed an openness to saying, okay, we can do a second round of subgrantee selection where we go back and look at those locations. So essentially, that's what that would mean. They brought that up to us. That was not our idea. So we're hopeful that they will let us do that. And then we can make sure, that we are able to serve as many locations. And again, these are locations that we had proposed to serve because our understanding and our belief is that they are currently not served. So we are, that's what that would mean. Like I said, we're still working on details on that and seeing what their thought is, but that's essentially what that would mean for the cleanup round. So we'll see.
Yeah, Peter, did you have a question?
On scale, would you say it's 10%, 20, 50? What are we looking at in terms of potential impact?
Hey, Peter, in terms of total locations, it is about 30,000, which is, we had about 100,000 that we had proposed to serve, so it's about 30%.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, David?
Kyle, I do see your, sorry, I'll forgive me. I saw your question, Kyle, about grant award deadlines for performance. Broadband opportunity and capital projects, the deadlines will be end of 2026. So about a year from now, we are asking subrecipients to finish those up a couple months early by October of 2026 so that we have time to close out with the federal government. So those are the deadlines that we're putting on, and we have been, our grant managers have been feverishly contacting all of our subrecipients about contacts or about progress that they've made on their projects to make sure that they can still meet those timelines. So end of 2026 for all BOP and CPF, and then end of 2030 will be BEAD, the asterisk there for satellite, which has a slightly different set of circumstances. That'll be 10 years from the date of the subaward, but end of 2030 would be the BEAD deadlines. So as far as we know at the moment, we're pretty confident that we'll still be able to meet the end of 26 for BOP and CPF, and then we will take BEAD as it comes. But we are working with that end of 2030 deadline in mind. And like I said, we're doing everything we can, and every indication is that we'll be able to meet those deadlines. So thank you, David. Sorry, go for it.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for answering the question. The question that I had was on those curing of those 30,000-ish locations. Is your office handling that, or will those go back to the ISPs, et cetera, to review and then for them to respond?
Yes, sir. So we've been in contact with the service providers since we got that curing comment from NTIA on the final proposal. Essentially, what we did is we reached out to all of the service providers and said, hey, we got this comment back from NTIA. They're saying we have to use our challenge process data. We have to use Fabric version 4 and the challenge process as our data set. They're saying we can't update to Fabric version 6. So we got back to them. We let them know. We got them a list of locations and said, if you have a project area that now doesn't work financially, let us know and we will figure out what to do. after that. So our service providers overwhelmingly said, we can make this work. We had a handful drop out. We lost, I think, about 2,000 committed locations overall, which is really pretty good. We are in the process of negotiating with providers about how to incorporate those into other service areas or other projects or whatever. But we are working on finalizing what to do with those locations. Largely, things will remain the same in terms of the service providers and the awards. Like I said, the locations will be different, but most service providers were able to commit to continuing in their project areas, even with the individual locations removed. So like I said, we're working on figuring out those last 3,000 locations, and then we'll be able to release a new data set. Like Elizabeth was talking about, we'll have new maps and the whole 9 yards. So like I said, finalizing things right now.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And
Yeah,
Joe.
Joe, I see your question in the chat as well. Go ahead.
Yes. Question. If you open a second round of benefits of the bargain, how does that affect the timeline on the NTIA's decision on the slate of provisional projects that you would be selecting? I know, for instance, California is the only state that hasn't submitted their slate yet, but would decisions be made on the first round of submissions, or would everyone in the state have to wait for the second benefits of bargain round to be complete before NTIA made any final decisions?
So the cleanup round is something that we have gotten very few details about. This was something that they mentioned kind of offhand in our SAC meetings and in our meetings with them. And I'll say, just so you guys are aware, we really did fight to use the newer data that we believe to be more accurate and that shows those locations as unserved. We went back and forth with them quite a bit on this and really did try and get that data set to be our definitive data set, because like I said, we believe that we need to serve all those locations. So when we mentioned that, they said, oh, by the way, there's been some appetite for potentially doing a cleanup round to address that. We didn't get much more details than that. My assumption would be that we would close out, we would use our final proposal keyed to that data set, we would finish, we would contract, we would do all that, and then we would have basically the opportunity to present a new kind of deadline for the data, right, with new Fabric versions, because Fabric version 7 just came out, to be able to establish a new data set of new unserved and underserved locations that weren't able to be addressed due to those data discrepancies. So like I said, we're still waiting for more details on that. My assumption would be that this would come after everything and would be subject to different timelines, not in the restructuring policy notice.
Yeah, Jacob, I see those as two separate issues. Adding a second benefits to the bargain round, I could see NTIA seeing that as different than using version 7 or version 6 of the map.
Okay.
I mean, they may look at those as separable, is my point.
Okay. And like I said, we'll just have to see. We do not have basically any guidance other than that one sentence, that one little offhand comment in our meeting with them. So whatever rules they do end up putting on will be we will adapt and we'll accommodate. We'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions?
Alrighty, thank you, Jacob. Like we said, we'll continue to keep you guys updated as we have these meetings with NTIA and let you know once those maps are updated. Moving on to our second announcement, just wanted to give everyone a heads up. We're going to be adjusting our monthly call invite, just updating the contact list and the invitee list. So I will send an email after Thanksgiving just to, if there's anyone that needs to be added or if you know anyone that's on it that should be taken off. And then once we've confirmed that, go ahead and update the invite. So just a heads up, sorry for the notifications. We hate to do it, but just want to make sure that we're keeping our invitee list up to date. But with that, unless anyone has any questions before we move over to the LTPT only section of the call, I'll go ahead and ask everyone that is not an LTPT to go ahead and step off. Thank you guys for joining us. Alrighty, it looks like everyone stepped off that needed to. Does anyone have any announcements, questions, concerns they would like to share?
I'll just jump in and say, so last week I was at the FREDA conference in Ocala. That's Florida Rural Economic Development Association. And it was a really cool conference, and I'm really glad I got to meet a lot of you in person again. But I did just want to bring up something they had. The keynote was this labor economist with Lightcast, and he had some really interesting things to say about workforce and workforce trends, and essentially how we are not producing enough trained technicians and blue collar workers to be able to sustain our economy into the future, and that we need to be able to move to adjust to some of these trends. So I really think that what we have planned for our workforce stuff fits right in line with what he's saying and addressing some of these needs before it becomes an issue. I think in Florida, we already have a really strong ecosystem for this, and I think we're really well equipped to deal with this. But I thought it was really interesting. So, like I said, fingers crossed. I'll say, I don't know if you guys saw it. A draft executive order was released last week that showed essentially that BEAD non-deployment funds could be conditioned on a lack of AI regulations on the books, which is an idea that they had put forth when they were doing the budget, and it got stripped out, and it looks like now they're thinking about that again. So on the bright side of that, I don't believe we have anything from a state perspective that would constitute an AI regulation. And if they do pass this, that does imply that they will then be letting us use non-deployment funds. So sort of silver lining there. Like I said, we're still hopeful we'll be able to use our workforce dollars. And again, like I said, if we can, I think it would be really positive, and I think we're really moving in the right direction. So just wanted to give an update on that. Like I said, great to see you guys at FREDA. Super cool conference. So yeah, like I said, if anyone else has any questions or comments. Kyle, yes, sir.
Yes. So hello, everybody. And things seem to be going well, but I've had a couple of calls from maybe some competing providers who are sort of questioning how they're not seeing awardees work happening, and they're anticipating that, in the next 8 or 9 months, to complete the work, that it just maybe is not going to happen. Are you guys anticipating a lot that we at the LTPT level may start to feel some of this pressure? I just want to kind of, if there's going to be an outcry, I kind of want to know about it up front. Is anyone thinking that or feeling that?
So totally understand the concern. I don't think we've heard that. If you want, we can double check on the projects and make sure that everything is proceeding at pace in your area, and that there's nothing of concern there. Like I said, in terms of the individual awards, we can make sure everyone's still on track. But we have not been hearing, I think, that there shouldn't be any issues.
Okay, we just had so much success. You guys helped us so much, and so there's this very high level of expectation, and I've tried my best to help the citizens to understand by when they might receive some of this stuff, subject to the information we have from the service providers. But now, as they look forward, they're thinking, well, time flies, and October 26th is not far off, less than a year away. So I just if I need to, or if we need to talk offline, check on our projects, and then if we need to anticipate any kind of coordinated communication, I would like to do that early, so that I can have, like by say June or July, I would want to be able to go to our policymakers, our commission level, and our administration to say, hey, this is we're a few months ahead of any of this. I just want to make sure that the communication is coordinated and open and clear. So
yes, sir.
thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, totally get the concern. We'll double check with that. We'll get with our grant managers and make sure that there's no issues. And like you said, if there is an issue, we can address it earlier rather than later.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kyle.
And I know on that our grant managers have really started to double down, just ramping up the communication with those awardees to make sure they're on task, but we'll definitely check on that. And if anyone has had similar concerns expressed to them, please let us know. Does anybody have anything else?
Hey, this is Brenda. So it was great to see you last week, Jacob. Thank you for coming to fun. And yes, the Lightcast did say that we don't have enough people in our world. We all need to get busy making more babies, I think. So I'll put that challenge out to the rest of you. But on a different note, Brandon, I saw that. One of our ISPs is has some funding to do some training for digital literacy. So we're starting just a mini series of 3, and they are going to the locations that are most needy. So I think that's kind of cool. We'll be doing that in the next few weeks, going out to some of our underserved areas to do just some really basic digital literacy program.
Nice. Super cool. That's very exciting. Love when the service providers are able to get involved like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Sandra. That's awesome. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
It's Kyle. Like again, I suppose maybe, as we go into the season of Thanksgiving, we're very thankful for the investment that was made into our library system, for the digital connectivity activity. So we have all of the hardware in now, and so we are going back over our curriculum and soon to start too with our digital literacy. So it's that success is happening too. It's nice. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I was in Wakulla County earlier last week. They got a multi-purpose award, and they have a ton of other stuff going on. So just to be able to see it all firsthand and see the progress you guys are making and see it all really start to make a difference. Yeah, it's really cool. So keep us updated. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, Ethan, go ahead.
I just had kind of a clarifying question. Just trying to wrap my head around the B discussion earlier with data discrepancy. So basically, there's 30% that were with the NTIA that we're not in agreement with on what's served or what data we're using, correct?
So essentially, what NTIA said is that the data set from which we did our subgrantee selection had to be our challenge process data set. We ran our challenge process over a year ago, and it was Fabric version 4. So we did Fabric version 6 when we did subgrantee selection because that was the most recent data we had. But they said you haven't done a challenge process for that round, so you can't use Fabric version 6. You have to use Fabric version 4. And so those 30,000 locations were added in Fabric versions 5 and 6. And so that's where the discrepancy occurred.
Okay.
And then we're still going through version 7 now and seeing what the changes are there. So, but that's the issue.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because I got one of my ISPs forward me an email that they had a contact from KPMG that there was new Florida B locations and it had like a whole Excel on it. So I was like, oh, I don't know what that is.
So essentially the new locations are locations that had been awarded, but because of the loss, those areas didn't make sense financially for those providers. So basically, some locations are now up for grabs that had been previously awarded. So that's
okay. And then will there be like a whole official round, or is it going to be more of like a quick?
So those locations we're just doing in a negotiation style, reaching out to providers either in a similar area or who have been previously awarded, or maybe through past programs or something like that. So those locations, there's not a ton of them, 2,000 or 3,000 or so. And we're trying to handle those, like I said, on this individual basis. And this sort of goes back into the cleanup round. NTIA had mentioned, okay, since there are so many, and this is happening in every state, by the way, since there are so many locations that stand to be left unserved or underserved after because of the outdated data, we might be able to do this cleanup round in the afterwards. Like I said, so we'll see. We're waiting for more information on that, but they mentioned that at the highest levels, there's an appetite for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think a cleanup round is huge. I mean, we've even talked about it at the county level of holding some money in reserve of in 2-3 years, if there's somebody who's not, as people aren't served, kind of using some of our own funds to kind of fill in some gaps.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm really worried of we'll get 3-4 years down the road, and then there will be residents who aren't even plan to have it.
Yeah, and we were absolutely trying to avoid that. Like I said, we used Fabric version 6 because that was the newest data that we had. So we are on the same page there. Very hopeful that we will be able to do that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, Elizabeth, this is Paul. Just to help clarify what Jacob had said, those 30,000 locations are actually about 27,000, 17,000 of which were errors in reporting by ISPs. They had said they served locations that were not served. So since we had claimed they were served in the challenge round, we could not change them to unserved in future reporting, which came through version 6. The remaining 10,000 locations are just locations that were added between Fabric 4 and Fabric 6. So it's a total of about 27,000. Again, 17,000 are erroneous reporting, and the other 10,000 are locations that were added from one fabric to the next.
Thank you, Paul, for giving that clarification on those locations. Alrighty, any other questions or things anybody would like to share? Alrighty, well, I'm not seeing anything in the chat or any hands raised, so thank you all for joining. We will continue to keep everybody updated as we go through this process. Please reach out if you have any concerns or questions, and I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving and safe travels. Thanks for hopping on today.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a wonderful holiday.